Hi, I'm with Larry Johnson from Sonar 21. Larry, thank you for joining me, and it's always great to talk to you.
Yeah, like crabgrass, I'm back.
we love having you, Larry. I wanted to get your take on where we are. We had Project Freedom regarding Iran. Project Freedom lasted one day. Trump says that he's pausing it because of some breakthrough with Iran or getting close to agreements. But then we have Trump talking more today about potentially striking Iran and putting it back, getting back into the war vibe. Where are we, Larry? How do you see this turning out from today's standpoint?
I don't know. I couldn't find my neck brace. I would have had that on. I mean, the whiplash.
The whiplash.
This is like watching a Wimbledon tennis match where all the players are like on methamphetamine, and so it's speeded up.
God.
Look, I've got a good friend in Dubai, and he's well connected with the United Arab Emirate. Let's call it defense officials. And he was told by one that the attack, there'd be a renewed attack on Iran starting on May 7th. I sent that to a friend who's still active duty in the military, and said, "Hey, this is what my friend's saying." And my military buddy replied, "Your friend is well connected." Wow. So I went, okay. Then yesterday, Trump comes out. First, you get the press conference with Marco Rubio, and Marco is, boy, man, he's laying down the law about how bad Iran is, the greatest evil ever to walk the face of the earth, and we got to contain him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And then Trump pops up and says, "So that Operation Project Freedom, it's paused. We're taking a pause." Hell, you just got started. It didn't even last like 24 hours, and you're pausing already.
Yeah.
So then the reports start coming out that they are, close to a deal. And then Trump says they're close to a deal. But then Axios put out the so-called proposal, and the Iranians have just said, basically, that's bullshit. That's not true. So you could make a case that a lot of this has been done simply to manipulate oil markets and oil futures markets, so somebody can make a quick buck. Yeah. But the actual plan with we got the military forces locked and loaded and ready to go. So my guess is that I think that Trump is going to take another bite at the apple. He is not in control of his presidency. That the neocon influence. I mean, if it was just his cabinet, he would probably not do it. But when you get the influence from outside, particularly Miriam Adelson and the other, it's primarily Jewish, but we'll call them the American Zionists, who are billionaires and want side strongly with Israel. So I'm afraid he's going to go ahead and green light it and do it again. I hope I'm wrong, because both Trump's conversation last week with Vladimir Putin made it clear that basically you better not attack Iran on the ground anyway, or you're gonna have big problems with us, without specifying what those problems would be. And then 2 days ago, you saw China tell Donald Trump and Scott Bessent, "Hey, you can take your dollars and you can shove them up your ass." Because China says, we're not going. You can sanction whoever you want. We're going to ignore your sanctions. We're not going to use your money. And on that front, you've got Russia now, and I'm pretty sure that it's a reliable report, but now indicating that it's only going to sell its oil for yuan. That if you want to buy it, you're going to use the Chinese currency. So they're moving really to carve out complete independence from the U.S. dollar. So the Trump administration's in trouble. They got sold this bill of goods. I thought it was the intelligence community, but apparently it's this Foundation for Defense of Democracy.
Oh yeah, FDD.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that they said, oh, hey, all you got to do is blockade Iran's oil, and they'll won't have any place else to store it, and this will cause their oil wells to collapse, and it will cause their society to collapse, and there will be an economic hot mess. It'll be a big dumpster fire. And so the Trump administration stupidly bought into that, and it's turned out just absolutely not to be true. Apart from the fact that the United States can't even do a blockade because we don't have enough ships.
And also, it's interesting. One thing that we talk about a lot is who could put up with more pain, the Iranians or Americans? And Trump has to deal with that. Now, I'm in Los Angeles. And let me tell you, Larry, I go to Costco to get my gas. And
they usually give you like a 15-cent discount over.
It's usually, the best prices. That is the Costco where I live in LA. And it was like $6.20 a gallon for regular.
Yeah.
And so for an American dealing with that, when 2 months ago it was probably $4.12 out here, that's real. I see these people. There's a lot of landscapers. There's a lot of people in construction out here, and I'm looking at their gas guzzling, F-150s, and I'm like, how do these companies do it? At what point can they maintain this?
Yeah, no, it's the same here. In fact. Just in the last 6 days, the price of gas went from $3.67 to $4.02.
Yeah,
that's in less than a week.
That's real. That hits Americans hard.
Yeah, well, that's biting Trump in the ass right now, and and so that's the other. They can't figure out what to do. They are literally stuck. The exit ramp is to make a deal with Iran that is politically unacceptable to the Zionists. And Trump has taken a lot of money from those Zionists. And, he's got his his son-in-law is one of the big ones, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff, his erstwhile business partner. They're heavily they're up to the necks with the whole Zionist project. This will set off a firestorm as far as Israel's concerned. So, Trump's caught there, but he is hemorrhaging now politically. What started off perhaps as a minor cut, and then it's a full-blown arterial bleed. He's going to bleed out because the political support is just draining away. Except, the very, very true believers. They're these folks who are still caught in this mythology that somehow Trump's thought this all through, and this is part of some grand master plan. No, it's not. They're making it up as they go along, and what Americans don't understand or appreciate is the United States has very, very, very limited military options. There is no viable ground force option, none at all. All we got are proposals that would get a lot of U.S. soldiers or Marines killed. We don't have any viable maritime options. Again, they say that they're going to enforce a blockade. Okay, to enforce a blockade, if a ship comes out, you stop it, you seize it, and then you board it. And then once on board, you install a prize crew. So you got your own guys sailing that ship. There aren't a bunch of unemployed maritime captains lying around that you just call them up and say, "Hey, buddy, can you meet us at the dock in an hour? We're going to take that's not how that works." And then you have the U.S. ship, the destroyer or the cruiser that stopped the oil tanker. It will then sail with that tanker to a destination where the U.S. can empty it, control it, whatever. Yeah, a form of piracy. Well, Iran, ever since April 15th, over 150 ships have come out of Iranian ports, sailing primarily to Asia. I think the United States has stopped 3. We don't have 150 ships. The total number of non-aircraft carrier-like ships, basically talking destroyers and cruisers, that we have right now in that entire area, from the Gulf of Oman to the Arabian Sea to the Indian Ocean, I think the number's like 15.
Wow.
Okay? So it's like, can you stop bullshitting us? Stop the gaslighting. Stop the lying. Stop telling the American people, oh, this is 100%. This is like a wall of steel. Oh, my God. It's not even a good wood fence, you know? So we've created the illusion of blockade, which further reinforces Iran's ability to keep all the other ships bottled up. Now, Iran continues to demand that the blockade be lifted just on principle, because it's not going to accept that. But, you know, normally to run an effective blockade, what you'd want to do is you'd put your warships, 3 to 4 miles outside the mouth of the harbor or the port where the ships come out. That way you can bottle them up. The United States is staying 200 miles off the coast of Iran, because if they get within that 200-mile range, they're vulnerable to attack from drones and missiles. So, the Trump administration has turned out to be the gang that cannot shoot or talk straight.
And they keep talking, Larry. They keep. Trump doesn't stop. Hexit doesn't stop. They keep making these announcements that Iran lost, their military is decimated, but they never explain to the American people, well, yeah, the military is decimated, but we still can't get closer than 200 miles to the Strait of Hormuz. So how do you square that?
Well, you don't.
No.
I mean, that's the problem. So explain to me, yesterday, Marco Rubio announced, along with Trump, epic fury is over. We achieved our objectives. What might those objectives be? Please list for me the accomplishments. Was it? Did you change the regime? No. Actually, you now actually have a more unified leadership running the country, and I'm talking about between President Pezeshkian, the head of the IRGC, the foreign minister Arachi, the head of the parliament Ghalibaf, and then the new Ayatollah, the Khamenei, the son of the former Ayatollah. Why I say they're more united? All 5 of those men, they fought in the Iraq War that lasted from 1980 to 1988. They didn't necessarily all serve in the same unit, but they all had that shared experience of an 8-year war that took 200,000 lives of Iranian soldiers and roughly around 70,000 lives of civilians. And, that shared wartime experience, they're sort of like our version of the Greatest Generation. How we venerated the men and women who fought in World War II. Mm-hmm. Same thing. This is sort of Iran's World War II until now. And so these guys are united. They're not divided at all. And so, we didn't change the regime. We haven't opened the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, it was our action that led to its closure, which has now devastated the world economy. We have not yet seen the full effects of that devastation, but it's coming. You can't hide it. Can't pretend that it's not there. Iran's ballistic missiles are still intact. Their facilities underground still intact, including production facilities. So, and they still have full control of their enriched uranium. So, what damn objectives did we accomplish? I know what we did. See, our true objective, unstated, we want to deplete our armaments to such a level that we're going to have to pump massive amounts of money back into the defense corporations, the Lockheed Martins, the General Dynamics, the Raytheons, so that those shareholders will have an economic benefit. That was our objective. Mission accomplished.
Do you think it's fair to say? Well, first of all, my next question, Larry, is Israel is the 800-pound elephant in the room that no one really talks about all the time when it comes to the U.S. war with Iran and how important Lebanon is. We had Netanyahu today bomb Beirut to kill a commander from Hezbollah. How do you see Israel allowing the U.S. to end the war? And does Israel have the power to force the U.S. to keep the war going? What's your take on that?
Well, no, they don't. I mean, the United States can bring Israel's ability to continue fighting to an end real quick. They just cut off the flow of money, cut off the flow of weapons. But Trump is too compromised, and God knows what Epstein files they have on him now. I used to not believe that, but I'm more and more inclined to believe that they've got some really damning compromising material about Trump or his family. The problem for Israel is there's one way United States may not attack Iran. The United States may try to seek rapprochement with Iran, but Israel, I'm sure, will try to attack. But this time, I think they're going to find it a tougher go because, in February 28th, the Saudis were actually all on board with the U.S. and Israel. Yeah, let's take them out, take out Iran. They'll be rid of that nuisance. Same with Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain, all of them. But not now. So I actually seriously doubt that the Saudis would allow any more overflights of their territory to carry out attacks on Iran, and may even go as far as to completely shut down all U.S. military bases in Saudi Arabia in exchange for a deal with Iran that allows Saudi oil to be taken out through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran, though, is still going to exact a price from the Saudis and from Qatar for the damages that were inflicted on Iran because their territories were used as launching pads for the U.S.-Israeli attack. So while, as of, it's now 2:15, 3:15 East Coast time on Wednesday, there's, lots of happy talk that there may be a negotiated deal near. While I believe Iran is willing to make a deal, it is because Iran thinks it's dealing from a position of strength. The things that Iran's going to demand: immediate relief of sanctions. The U.S. is saying, oh, well, okay, you stop your enrichment, and maybe in 5 years or we'll have a gradual lifting of sanctions. Iran's going to say, stuff it. We're not doing that. It's now. Release them now. Lift the blockade now and give us our damn money back. You took our money. Give it back. I don't see the United States willing to compromise on any of that. And so that means this economic tsunami crisis is coming, it's going to continue building, and it's going to wash us away.
You mentioned Rubio's press conference yesterday, and one of the other interesting things that he mentioned was he said Iran has to agree to the U.S. demands. He said they're sensible demands, but it's like, Marco, do you know that we're basically telling Iran that it needs to neuter itself? It can't have any missile protection, no nuclear program. It essentially gives up its sovereignty. Why would Iran ever agree to that today or 2 years from now if the war's continuing? I mean, why would they?
No, they won't, and that's the point. They agreed when the JCPOA. If you never have read it, go back and look it up, because it was pretty. I'll call it a partial castration of Iranian sovereignty. But at the time, both Russia and China were part of that agreement and were committed to imposing sanctions on Iran if Iran did not comply. And so Iran was complying with that agreement until the United States created a pretext to say, under Trump, no, they weren't complying and therefore tore up the agreement. And so, once again, Iran never got sanctions relief that it was promised back in 2015. Instead, all it got was more sanctions. That now, what's changed is Russia and China now realize they'd never sign on to an agreement like that again. They made it quite clear they're not. You want to sanction Chinese banks, Chinese refineries for importing Russian oil and or Iranian oil. The government of China said very strongly. I mean, this was atypical. The Chinese are usually they're not blunt, and they're diplomatic. This wasn't diplomatic. They basically told Trump to go to hell. Yeah, no sanctions. No, forget it. Don't pay attention to that. We're going to ignore all U.S. sanctions going forward. Oh, Trump, you want to come visit China next week? This may be the other thing, though, that's preventing the United States from going forward with the attack. The Chinese reportedly told Trump, if you launch a new set of attacks on Iran, forget about coming to China. We don't want to see you. So Trump is desperate to go to China because he's got to try to think. He thinks he can work his magic on Xi Jinping hey, will you buy some more of our soybeans? Will you buy some more of our agricultural items and those rare earth minerals that you cut off? Can we get back on that? Because otherwise we can't build the Tomahawk missiles that we want to use against you in the future.
Yeah, in Taiwan, right?
Yeah, and I can see she. Oh yeah, no, I only look stupid. Okay,
it's like
yeah.
Hey, Larry, I wanted to ask you, and again, Larry Johnson, Sonar 21. We're going to have a link down below. But I also wanted to ask: are you surprised that no countries, no allies in Europe, NATO, are you surprised at the response that Trump received during this whole Strait of Hormuz stare down? And are you surprised that these countries weren't more willing to get involved, especially given that the Ukraine support, NATO wants the U.S. to continue to stay involved with that? What does that lack of response tell you about the overall relationship between Europe and the U.S.?
Well, that relationship is crumbling. I mean, it's like a married couple. They've been together now for 80 years. Now they're sleeping in separate bedrooms. Okay, so there's a tension in the house. But let's come back. What were they supposed to do? Open the strait. How do you quote open the Strait of Hormuz when the United States itself is afraid to send its naval vessels into the strait, knowing that they'll be sunk, knowing that the United States does not have the ability to protect a U.S. destroyer or a U.S. cruiser, much less a U.S. aircraft carrier, from being destroyed. Because, good Lord, almost 40 years ago, so let's see, so it was 1987. So, 39 years ago, we had an oil escort operation. So the Iraq war was underway with Iran, and Iran, in trying to fight back, decided to start laying mines because they were trying to prevent the shipment of oil out of Iraq to cause damage to Iraq, so we had I know the Navy SEAL commander who was in charge of what was called the Hercules barge, and it was like a miniature floating island off the coast of Bahrain, and that was called the oil escort operation. So what they did is they boarded and seized Iranian vessels that were laying mines. There was a mine sweepers going through the Gulf picking up the mines. They were attacked one night by a number of Iranian gunboats those they're called bog hammers, and my buddy Paul and his SEAL platoon, fought them off, and actually I remember Paul telling me, he said what they recovered, that they did recover that night, a floating surface-to-air missile, a Stinger, the U.S. built from the Iranians. They got that from Oliver North. You remember when the Iran Contra? So, but the point is, back then, Iran didn't have any military, apart from mines. They really didn't have the ability to stop U.S. ships from going through the Strait of Hormuz and doing whatever the hell they wanted. Now, Iran has many submarines with torpedoes, in addition to the mines. You got many submarines with torpedoes. They've got underwater drones. They got surface drones. They have drones, conventional drones that fly through the air with the least of care. Then on top of that, they have coastal defense cruise missiles built into caves and outlets that are almost impossible to find and destroy. Then they got short range and intermediate range ballistic missiles. So if it's a multi-layered defense or offensive system, depending on how you want to use it. And, the United States we can't defeat that. I mean, when I say we can't, could we come up with a scheme? Okay, we're going to build a 3 million man army, and we're going to saturate the coast, one area of the coast of the Strait of Hormuz. We're gonna go in there with these 3 million men, land them somehow.
Yeah. How would you get them there?
Yeah. I mean, it's just you would lose. So the death toll would be quite high. So, but what it would take, we'd have to go inland and actually capture these areas where the drones are launched from, where the missiles who are underground are launched from, and that could take years. So that's what I'm saying. There's no viable military path forward. And so all we got is we're going to drop some more bombs, launch some more cruise missiles that we're running out of. Yeah, all makes complete sense to me.
Last question, Larry. If Witkoff just recently hired someone who worked for FDD Action, his last name's Stewart.
Yeah.
And he was a big Iran hawk. And of course, FDD is known for pushing the war with Iran. But instead of Witkoff picking this guy, Witkoff gave you a phone call and said, "Hey, Larry, we're in a bit of a jam here. What would you recommend that we do that's a pragmatic way to get out of Iran, to cut and run without looking like we lost? And what if someone asked you, if Witkoff asked you, we want out, we want to make it look, we want to be able to sell the American people that we won this thing. What do we do? What would you recommend that he does?"
Yeah, the only path out is to basically revive the JCPOA, resurrect it, as it were. But there would be changes this time. It would be permanent. That we're going to have a permanent procedure in place to inspect Iranian nuclear facilities to ensure that they're not building a nuke. I think Iran would be more than happy to say, yeah, we're not going to build a nuke, but in exchange for that, you got to lift all the sanctions and give us our money back. And also we're going to charge fees for use of the Persian Gulf until such time as we're able to rebuild everything that you destroyed. Now, Trump could come out of this and say, hey, we fought this war and we have convinced Iran that they do not want a nuclear weapon and they've agreed never to build one. That would be his escape. But I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to take it. Maybe he will. He is under pressure. I know with J.D. Vance is leading the charge to try to say, we got to get out. It is going to kill us. And the thing most people don't understand or appreciate is how dire the economic situation is going to become. I've likened it to, I use the term tsunami because, the first sort of 7 weeks of this war, it's like when you're sitting on the beach and a tsunami's coming, the water runs away from you. It doesn't run at you. The water is pulling away. It looks peaceful. There's not a giant wave out there on the ocean coming at you yet, but that pulls back. And, people that know that is a warning sign, that's the minute they grab their beach chair, get their butt out off the sand, and they start running for high ground. This is a warning sign of what's coming. Here we have had 20% of the world's oil cut off now for 66 days. So at the start of this, there was still oil in tankers on the high seas that were going slowly moving, at 10 knots, 12 knots a day, able to go about 200 miles in a day, in a 24-hour day, slowly creeping across the ocean. They started doing the final offloads like last week, the week before that. Now you really have shortages, because then you could argue, well, what we're using up now, we still got some more inbound. So we're not actually out. Now the countries are out. Now it is empty. Now what do you do? Well, as everybody with conventional, took their introduction to economics knows, when you've got scarcity of a good that is essential, the price goes up. And so as that price goes up, it has secondary and tertiary effects, like you pointed out with the landscapers. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden their fuel bill is gone up 50%. So they're going to have to come and say, hey, you've been charging me $150 a month. It's going to be $200 a month now. So now I got to shell out an additional $50 a month, and that's $600 more a year just for that. The dog food I bought for my dogs, last year this time I was paying $14.50 for a 5-pound log of hamburger. I feed them raw meat, and now that is $21.50.
That's real money right there.
Yeah,
for Americans.
So that's that's $6 for 3. So that's $18 every, $36 a month. Again, so we're gonna come up that's adding almost $500 a year more to that bill. So all of a sudden you get these increased expenses, and if your income is still steady or declines somewhat, you're going to have to make cuts. So money that you would have spent on restaurants or on trips or vacations or whatever, all of a sudden that goes away. Yeah. Then the hospitality, that starts collapsing. So that doesn't happen overnight. It starts like as that tsunami pulled away, then the water starts rushing in. And again, it's not a giant wave initially, but all of a sudden it then starts building. And if you haven't prepared for that, you're dead.
Yeah, but you know what, Larry, though? Iran's not going to have a nuke. So you must be, we'll be happy, because Iran's not. When I see the gas bills, I think to myself, well, Iran is not going to have the nuke that they never wanted to begin.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. This is so this is not just geopolitics. This is geoeconomic politics, and it's going to be the economics of it that are going to will be ultimately the driving force behind U.S. desire to reach a deal. Again, it may be too late. I would love to, Trump may postpone doing anything to Iran until after he makes his trip to China, but it's still, I think the Chinese trip is still up in the air. Yeah. But we'll see.
On that note, Larry Johnson, Sonar 21, thank you as always for joining me with the Trends Journal. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I always enjoy it.